Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Emily Studley, and the program coordinator for the TechLab at MCity program at the Center for Entrepreneurship in the College of Engineering at University of Michigan. Today, we're going to talk about the TechLab at MCity program, and I'm pleased to be joined by Jillian, Yash, and Melinda today. Thank you all for joining us. To start, let's do a round of introductions. If you could tell us your name, a little bit about yourself, and what you've done in your time and in TechLab. So Melinda, would you like to go first?
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm Melinda Kothbauer. I graduated from U of M with a degree in computer engineering in 2018. Since then, I've worked as a robotics engineer at Mobility, a startup that came out of the university. And when I was in TechLab at U of M, I was partnered with the company ZenDrive, where we were doing some driver behavior studies and things of that nature, thinking about how to classify drivers' behavior and making sure that drivers are safe.
Hi everyone, I'm Yash Gambir. I usually go by Yash. I started at University of Michigan studying data science in 2016 and have continued my education with a master's in computer science that I'm currently doing. And during TechLab, I worked for Trillium Secure as well as Refraction AI during the 2019 year.
What did you do with Refraction AI or Trillium?
Yeah, so at Trillium Secure, I worked on machine learning solutions for identifying cyber attacks within vehicles and inter-vehicle communication. And at Refraction AI, I helped build a dashboard that tracked their autonomous vehicle fleet in Ann Arbor and give them valuable insights about their vehicles.
Jillian?
Yeah, so my name is Jillian Minahan. I am a rising senior at Michigan, getting a degree in computer engineering. So I'll be graduating next spring. And I'm currently in the middle of the TechLab program. So I just finished the first semester, since it's a 2-semester program. So I'll be doing it again next semester for the fall. And I'm working with a company called Soul Robotics, and they produce 3D perception software. And right now, the focus of our project is creating a smart city product where we're actually using their software with LiDAR sensors at intersections to detect cars and optimize traffic flow.
What caught your eye about TechLab at MCity, and why did you join the program?
For me, it was definitely self-driving cars. So my sophomore year or so, I started hearing a lot more about self-driving cars, started reading a lot, talking to professors, and it just sounded really cool. So when I saw that there was a program that kind of partnered with startups in the AV, the connected and automated space, that was really exciting. And then I joined after I actually got to see the wide range of companies that actually participate, because I was really excited about the exposure to all of the different kind of elements of the AV ecosystem.
Yeah, so for me, I'd say as well, like being very interested in the autonomous vehicles industry, as well as being able to work for a startup. For me, growing up in Detroit, like around Detroit, Michigan, and being exposed to the Motor City and that vibe, and also being interested in tech coming into college, I was definitely very interested in exploring the autonomous vehicles industry.
So I looked at TechLab actually because I had gotten an offer and accepted a position at a company that was focused in the automotive space, and I didn't really know that much about automotive and just autonomous vehicles in general. And so I thought it'd be a really great opportunity to prepare for that job and be exposed to what's going on in the industry.
Looking at your time in TechLab, what are you most proud of accomplishing?
I guess so far as far as what I'm proud of accomplishing, I think we did a really good job at looking at what we had, what resources we had, and taking advantage of them. I think one of the really neat things about this program is you do use MCity and use the testing facilities, and that was probably the most fun part of it, is just to go into MCity and drive some cars and test out and record. We would go in and record different test cases. So yeah, I was pretty proud of how we were able to leverage the resources given to us. Even in the class, 2 of our instructors are both working at Ford, and so we talked to them many times about what it's like to run a project and some of the challenges we encounter that weren't necessarily technical, and they could really help us because they had so much time.
Yash, how about you?
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest thing that I'm proud of is really working with my team to build something that our startup that we were working for actually ended up using. So I think, being able to currently it was for Refraction AI. They essentially have this very early fleet of autonomous robots that are going around Ann Arbor and helping deliver food. So for us to be able to build like a dashboard to help them better visualize not only where the robots are, but key data about each robot. For example, what type of roads that it's going on, if it's a bumpier road, what kind of challenges it might face with latency. So I think just being able to have like a really tangible impact, I think was the biggest achievement that me and my team had.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I was going to echo everything Yash just said. I think the thing I was most proud of was that my team and I created something of tangible value to the company that we were partnered with. It wasn't just kind of a throwaway project that was made for interns. It was something that actually informed company projects and directives. And that was definitely the part that made me most feel the best about the work I was doing.
How has TechLab at MCity informed or changed your career goals?
I think digging through the details of my company's product kind of solidified, this idea for me that I definitely want to be technically focused and build and understand a product. I only know so much detail about maybe particular parts, but maybe deep diving on one thing in particular, which we did, for sure want to do that. But I also think that the other side I wasn't expecting was that we did see things through a more business lens. That's a big part of the class. And I think that reinforced for me that I really enjoy, understanding why we're building what we're building and what value it adds to a certain group of people or a certain society or city. And that was like a big part of our project. I definitely, being part of the class is kind of informed for me and probably solidified some thoughts I already had about maybe I want to move into something more business focused later on.
Yash, how about you?
Yeah, so I think for me, my involvement in the TechLab program confirmed both my interest in working in the autonomous vehicle space as well as my interest in working for startups. I was able to gain the experience that kind of I was looking for, and it gave me even more excitement to apply to more autonomous vehicle startups after graduation and try to really seek out those opportunities. On the same boat as Jillian, that I think I definitely explored various non-technical aspects of not only the AV industry, but project management in general. That has me kind of thinking about other roles as well down the line that could be a little maybe towards product or project management or business focus. So it's definitely giving me that perspective that I think is valuable to help me explore various career paths down the line.
Yeah, for me, TechLab made it really easy to be able to actually evaluate and compare startup offer letters with not startup offer letters. And so, after I was in my last semester before graduation, when I was figuring out what I was going to do next, being able to have, a thorough understanding of things like employee equity, VC funding, what questions to ask a startup when you're interviewing, at the end to make sure that you're aligned with their mission and vision, as well as that they have an actual go-to-market strategy and different things like that. So I think for me, TechLab kind of gave me the vocabulary and the skills to be able to actually parse this other real startups in the world.
A key component of the TechLab at MCity program are the 2 semesters of coursework. The first is focused on the technological landscape, and the latter is focused on the commercialization pathways in the CAV space. What value have you gained from those classes specifically? Is there a particular assignment, lesson, or experience from the class that was really memorable?
Pretty fresh in my mind was one class where we just kind of had a discussion about privacy and data privacy and how that's a really big topic in mobility, and especially with autonomous vehicles and the new technology they're using. How might there be some concerns about who owns data and those sorts of things. So we definitely had a really interesting conversation and set up the room where we had a table in the middle, and there's 4 chairs, and if you had something to say, go ahead and sit down, and then if there weren't any chairs open but you really want to talk, you could stand behind someone, kind of pressure them to either say something or leave. And so we that was a really interesting conversation we had, and I think it was definitely in contrast to some of the other things we did in the class, which was mostly like listening to leaders in startups and kind of digesting and understanding what's going on. This was really interactive, and I really loved that.
Yeah, so I'd say an very interesting part of the class itself was a specific assignment that we had in both semesters, where we had to essentially draw an ecosystem map that showed the various stakeholders and other industry partners that our companies relied on and also competed with. Looking at that holistic view of a company in a space was very interesting to me and something that I certainly gained a lot from and gained a lot of insight from.
One of my favorite classes was we actually did a startup simulation game. And so we basically all started out with different roles. Some people were VC funders, and then others were, founders, and so on. And obviously everyone had different objectives, right? And then at the end, you were kind of scored if you had met those objectives and how much money you had and what your return on investment was. And basically then, we went through and spent time negotiating with each other and trying to obviously meet our own objectives while not letting other people meet their objectives, and things like that. It was really a lot of fun, but it was also, it was actually pretty good to see kind of the entire ecosystem. So similar to what Yash said.
So since all three of you have been in this industry for a little bit, when do you think there'll be a level 5 autonomous vehicle on the road?
I think it's a long ways away.
Yeah.
Like more than a decade probably, to be fully realized. But I think that's why it's so exciting, is that there's going to be a lot of iterative progress in that time.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's hard to say when exactly we would be in a world completely dominated by autonomous vehicles, but I'd say certainly getting to a point where it can provide real value, I think, is coming up really soon and happening currently. So I think that's really exciting too.
Yeah, same thing. Definitely from speakers, we're hearing a lot of skepticism. I think there's perhaps like customers, are a little bit more hopeful that it's going to happen soon, and the engineers are like, let's wait. So I think, it'll probably be a little bit of time, but there's a lot of really exciting work being done. So cross our fingers.
Yeah. If you were speaking to a prospective TechLab student, what would you say to encourage them to apply to the program?
I would say just do it. I think for me, aside from all of the technical work that was really interesting and engaging, I think the people that I met were really influential in my career at U of M and afterwards. And that's everyone from the peers in the course to the instructors and of course the guest speakers. So I think that, developing that network is almost even more important than, developing the skills that you need as an engineer, because they're meeting new people and people who think differently than you just opens up a lot of doors for you, both at U of M and afterwards as well.
Yeah, I would say, if you're wanting something that's a little bit different than like your typical technical class, and you want to touch a little bit more of the business side of things and kind of see, as Melinda and Yash have been talking about, like what does it mean to be part of a startup, and what do you have to do to make this work? Kind of answering those questions, like how are startups figuring out right now? So I think if you're interested in those things, this is like definitely a really good program to be part of. If you're curious about MCity, I thought that was something that was really neat for me. I was like, I just want to go up to North Campus and like see North Campus and see MCity and be part of that. And so I thought that was really neat. And if that's something you're curious about, for sure apply. I don't think you can't make a mistake applying. It's a good program to be a part of and get experience in lots of different ways.
Yeah, I think I'd say, if you want to be exposed to an industry that I think in general is very poised to make a very positive change in the world, I think like this is the perfect program for you to gain not only like the engineering exposure, but also, like Melinda said, the exposure to the right people and the right people to put you in the right positions future in your career, as well as to learn a lot about the AV industry currently. I think like people in this industry are like they're very set on trying to like make the world safer and make the world better with autonomy. So I think that like level of wholesomeness is also like, that's something that you'd be interested in, then dive into TechLab and apply right away.
How does TechLab, how is it similar or different than other project teams that you worked on during your undergrad?
It's similar in a sense that if you're an engineering student, you'll be very familiar with working with other engineering students and applying very similar skills that you would have gained in the classroom. But I think a big difference is the level of ambiguity. So with class projects, most of the time you have a set level of expectations and requirements that don't really change, especially if it's like a big assignment or final project. But with the TechLab program, you're really working with a startup, and a startup that's really trying to learn more about the problem it's solving in the first place. So there's definitely a lot of ambiguity that is, I think, very valuable to work with. And you'll learn a lot more with taking a problem and trying to structure it and tackle various subproblems within it.
Mm-hmm. I bet there's a lot of pivots you have to make.
Yeah, it definitely happens. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can for sure echo what Yash is saying about, the structure of the project is a little bit different. Like usually in most technical classes at you have a spec and it tells you like all the details, and most of it's like pretty laid out, and you have professors who know what the right answer is, that you can talk to and consult with. But the structure of the tech lab projects is more like you're given this, okay, we think this is what we want you to try. And my experiences in internships so far, it's kind of like how industry is too. There's like, okay, this is kind of what we want to accomplish, but we're not going to lay it piece by piece out for you. And yeah, definitely like the structure of like a week is different too. So we would every week we would come back to our project mentors and talk to them about the progress we've made. And of course, if you're in a regular, project in a class or a project team, you're not reporting to someone necessarily. And so, at least not in my experience. So I think that was definitely a change, in dealing with that ambiguity, and working together is definitely what this brings.
+1 to the ambiguity. It's much more reflective of what it's actually like to work, in industry, and especially at a startup where you're trying to develop something that hasn't been developed yet. And so you don't know what the right answer is when you start out. And so I think that the skills that you gain in dealing with that ambiguity is actually really, really valuable, especially if you are to join a startup. But at any industry, that's kind of the idea, is that you're the one defining the requirements. And so that's a whole project in and of itself. So I think that's one of the biggest differences, but it's also one of the really useful parts of TechLab.
I want to say thank you again to my guests for their time, and I hope that this has helped answer any questions you might have, or possibly get you thinking about some we didn't get to answer today. Either way, we invite you to visit cfe.umich.edu/summer and cfe.umich.edu/TechLab MCity to check out all the resources available, as well as more information about the various programs, classes, and offerings at CFE. Thank you so much, and go Blue.